Stop controlling will cause anxiety to quietly disappear from your life. That sounds almost offensive to the anxious mind. Stop controlling? If I stop controlling, everything will collapse. If I loosen my grip, things will fall apart. That is the belief, and that belief is the trap. Anxiety does not always scream. It tightens. It tightens around what might happen tomorrow, around what someone might say, around whether things will go as planned. It whispers that vigilance is safety, that constant mental supervision equals protection. But look closer. Most anxiety is not fear of the event itself. It is fear of not being able to control the event. The mind rehearses conversations that have not happened. It predicts outcomes that have not formed. It attempts to secure certainty in a world designed to remain uncertain. The more you try to control what lies beyond you, the less control you feel within yourself. Because control over outcomes is unstable. It depends on other people, shifting variables, hidden factors. And when those variables move, your nervous system reacts as if you have failed. This is not about becoming passive. It is not about abandoning responsibility. It is not about suppressing emotion or pretending nothing matters. It is about identifying where your authority truly ends, and then withdrawing your mental energy from what was never yours to command. Stoicism begins with a simple but severe distinction. Some things are up to you. Some things are not. Anxiety grows in the confusion between the two. When you try to own what is not yours, your mind enters permanent tension. What if anxiety is not a permanent condition? What if it is a symptom of misplaced control? What if the tightness in your chest is not weakness, but exhaustion from holding something you were never meant to hold? To move forward, you must first confront how deeply control has embedded itself into your thinking. Because before anxiety can disappear quietly, the illusion that feeds it must be exposed. The subtle habit of mental rehearsal. You call it preparation. You call it thinking ahead. But look closely at what the mind is doing. It is replaying conversations that have not happened. It is imagining objections before they are spoken. It is constructing future scenarios in detail, as if rehearsing will grant control. This habit feels responsible. It feels intelligent. If I anticipate everything, I will not be caught off guard. If I mentally practice the outcome, I will reduce uncertainty. That is the promise. But what actually happens is different. Each imagined scenario activates the body as if it were real. Your heart responds. Your muscles tighten. Your breathing shifts. The nervous system does not distinguish clearly between reality and detailed imagination. So every rehearsal becomes a micro-exposure to stress. You believe you are increasing control. In reality, you are exhausting stability. Stoicism does not forbid foresight. It forbids attachment to imagined outcomes. There is a difference between planning and ruminating. Planning focuses on actions within your authority. Rumination focuses on variables outside it. When you replay conversations repeatedly, you are attempting to manage the other person's future reaction. But their reaction is not yours to command. No amount of rehearsal can guarantee how they will respond. And this is where anxiety grows. Not from the event, but from the mind's attempt to dominate it before it exists. The more you rehearse, the more you convince yourself that control is possible. And when reality deviates from your script, tension intensifies. If you want anxiety to weaken, You must notice this pattern, not with judgment, with clarity, because the mind that constantly predicts is not calm. It is trying to manufacture safety through imagination, and prediction brings us to the next illusion, the illusion of predictive safety. The mind tells you that if you imagine the worst, you will be prepared. If you anticipate every negative possibility, nothing will surprise you. Forecasting becomes a ritual of self-protection. You believe that by thinking through disaster in advance, you reduce its power. But examine what truly happens. When you repeatedly simulate worst-case scenarios, you do not reduce fear. You rehearse it. You strengthen the neural pathway of threat. The brain becomes more efficient at detecting danger because you have trained it to search for it constantly. Prediction is often disguised rumination. It feels proactive, but it rarely ends in clear action. It circles, it expands, it multiplies variables, and each variable becomes another branch of uncertainty to manage. Stoicism does acknowledge negative visualization, but with precision. The purpose is not to dwell on catastrophe. It is to remove the shock of possibility and return to reason. After recognizing that something could happen, the Stoic asks a decisive question. If it does, what part is within my conduct? Predictive anxiety never asks that question. It stays focused on the uncontrollable outcome. It seeks certainty where certainty does not exist. And the more it searches, the more instability it finds. You cannot forecast your way into safety. You cannot imagine every scenario into submission. Life will always contain elements beyond calculation. Trying to eliminate that uncertainty is like trying to flatten the ocean with your hands. Real preparation is about readiness of character, not control of circumstance. If your conduct remains stable, many outcomes become manageable. But if you try to secure the outcome itself, you remain tense. The illusion is subtle. You believe anxiety is helping you stay ahead. In truth, it keeps you mentally ahead of yourself, never fully present. And when prediction fails to secure peace, the mind moves to a more refined strategy. It begins micromanaging everything in reach, the micro-control reflex. When the future feels uncertain, the mind looks for smaller territories to dominate. Tone of voice, choice of words, how long you pause before replying, how others might interpret a message. You begin editing yourself constantly, adjusting, refining, monitoring reactions in real time. This is the micro-control reflex. It feels subtle, responsible, socially intelligent. But beneath it lies tension. You are trying to manage perception, trying to preempt misunderstanding, trying to secure approval through careful calibration. Every interaction becomes a field of invisible correction. The problem is not awareness. The problem is attachment. When you believe that every detail must be optimized to prevent discomfort, your nervous system never rests. You are always scanning, always adjusting, always guarding. Stoicism teaches that your role is to act with integrity, not to govern how others interpret that action. Once you have spoken honestly and behaved rationally, the outcome of perception belongs to them. When you attempt to control that perception, you exceed your jurisdiction. Micro-control also creates fragility. If your stability depends on how perfectly you manage impressions, any deviation becomes threatening. A misunderstood message feels catastrophic. An unexpected reaction feels destabilizing. You are not exhausted because life is unbearable. You are exhausted because you are trying to supervise every variable. And the more you tighten your grip on small things, the more anxious you become about the larger ones. Control is rarely about power. It is often about fear, and that fear deserves to be examined directly. The fear behind control. Control is rarely about efficiency. It is about protection. Beneath the need to manage outcomes, correct perceptions, and anticipate reactions lies a quieter force. Fear of uncertainty, fear of being exposed, fear of not being enough if things unfold outside your design. When you attempt to control everything, you are trying to shield yourself from vulnerability. If I can secure the result, I will not be embarrassed. If I can predict the outcome, I will not be blindsided. If I can manage perception, I will not be rejected. Control becomes armor, but armor has weight, and constant vigilance is exhausting. Stoicism does not deny vulnerability, it confronts it. The Stoic understands that uncertainty is not a flaw in the system. It is part of the structure of reality. You are not promised immunity from loss, criticism, or failure. Trying to eliminate that possibility creates perpetual tension. Anxiety grows when the mind believes it must eliminate all risk. But risk is inseparable from existence. Relationships contain unpredictability. Effort contains uncertainty. Outcomes contain variables beyond your reach. Control promises safety. In truth, it promises strain. The deeper fear is this: if I do not control, I will not be able to endure what happens. But endurance is not built through control of events. It is built through strength of character. The Stoic question is not, how do I prevent discomfort, but how do I respond if it arrives? That shift moves power inward. When you stop trying to eliminate uncertainty and start preparing your conduct, fear begins to lose dominance. And once fear is exposed, another truth becomes clear. No matter how hard you try, most outcomes never belong to you. The control-outcome mismatch. There is a harsh but liberating truth. Effort does not equal authority. You can prepare thoroughly, act carefully, communicate clearly, and still not control the final result. Other people have their own decisions. Circumstances shift. Variables interact in ways you cannot foresee. Yet the anxious mind believes that more effort should guarantee more control. When the outcome does not align, tension increases. You begin questioning what you missed, what you should have adjusted, what you failed to manage. The assumption is that somewhere, somehow, you could have secured the result if only you had controlled better. This is the mismatch. You control intention. You control effort. You control integrity. You do not control outcome. When you confuse these domains, anxiety multiplies. You hold yourself accountable for what was never yours to command. Stoicism draws a clean line. Your responsibility lies in the quality of your action, not the certainty of your result. If you have acted with reason and discipline, you have fulfilled your jurisdiction. The rest belongs to external forces. When identity attaches to outcome, every deviation feels personal. When identity attaches to conduct, outcomes become information, not verdicts. The mismatch creates strain because you attempt to dominate variables that never belong to you. And when those variables behave independently, you interpret it as failure. But what if the problem is not insufficient control? What if the problem is believing control extends further than it does? This is where Stoic clarity begins to reorganize power, because control is not a single category. It is divided into jurisdictions, and misunderstanding those jurisdictions is the root of tension. The dichotomy of jurisdiction: not everything is simply in your control or out of your control. That binary is helpful, but incomplete. The deeper Stoic clarity lies in jurisdiction. What is yours to decide? What is yours to influence? And what is entirely beyond your authority? Your thoughts, intentions, choices, and actions belong to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your discipline belongs to you. These are decisions, direct and immediate. Outcomes, opinions, timing, and reactions belong to a different category. You may influence them. You may increase probability, but you do not decide them. They are not under your command. Anxiety grows when you treat influence as if it were authority. When you say, "If I try hard enough, this must go my way." But influence does not guarantee result. It only shapes possibility. The Stoic separates preference from ownership. You can prefer a certain outcome. You can work toward it. But once action is taken, the result is released, because the result lives outside your jurisdiction. When you fail to make this distinction, tension becomes constant. You feel responsible for what you cannot determine. You carry weight that was never assigned to you. Jurisdiction brings clarity. If it is within your decision, act fully. If it is only within your influence, act wisely, but detach from certainty. If it is entirely external, withdraw emotional investment. This is not passivity. It is precision. The moment you recognize the limits of your authority, something shifts internally. Energy stops leaking into uncontrollable domains, and that leads to the next discipline. Where attention goes, tension grows. The energy withdrawal principle. Attention is not neutral. It is fuel. Wherever you direct it, you energize it. When your mind repeatedly returns to what you cannot command, you are not solving the problem. You are strengthening its psychological weight. Anxiety thrives on sustained attention. The more you revisit an uncertain outcome, the more real and immediate it feels. Even if the event has not occurred, your nervous system behaves as if it is present. You feed tension by funding it with mental capital. The Stoic approach is not to deny concern, but to withdraw unnecessary investment. If something lies outside your jurisdiction, excessive attention does not increase control. It increases agitation. This is a deliberate act. You notice the mind drifting toward uncontrollable territory. You acknowledge it. Then you redirect. Back to action. Back to what is in your authority. Back to conduct. Energy withdrawal is not suppression. It is refusal to participate in illusion. You do not argue with reality. You do not attempt to dominate it mentally. You remove the fuel that sustains the anxiety. There is discipline in this. It requires repetition. The mind will return to the same worry. Each time, you redirect without drama. You train attention to stay within its rightful domain. Over time, tension weakens, not because circumstances change, but because you stop feeding what you cannot control. And once energy is reclaimed, it can be invested properly, not in outcome certainty, but in execution quality, the practice of conditional intentions. Control seeks guarantees. Discipline seeks alignment. This is the difference. The anxious mind says, "I will be calm if this works. I will feel secure if they respond positively. I will relax once the result is certain." Peace becomes conditional upon outcome, and since outcome is unstable, peace remains unstable. Conditional intention reverses this structure. Instead of attaching emotional stability to results, you attach commitment to conduct. I will act well, regardless of the result. I will respond with clarity, regardless of their reaction. I will maintain integrity, even if the outcome shifts. This changes everything. When your intention is conditional upon execution quality rather than outcome certainty, anxiety loses leverage. You are no longer negotiating with the future. You are committing to your behavior. Stoicism emphasizes that virtue lies in action, not result. If you have acted rationally, disciplined your impulses, and maintained composure, you have fulfilled your role. The external response is secondary. Conditional intention also stabilizes identity. You stop measuring yourself by what happens and start measuring yourself by how you show up. That shift removes pressure from events and places responsibility where it belongs, in your conduct. You still plan, you still care, but you do not demand that reality comply with your preference. You demand that your behavior comply with your principles. And when that shift becomes consistent, uncertainty begins to feel less threatening because you start to understand something deeper. Uncertainty is not a malfunction. It is structural. Accepting uncertainty as structural reality. The anxious mind treats uncertainty as a problem to solve, as if unpredictability were an error in the system, as if life were supposed to unfold according to plan and deviation were a violation. But uncertainty is not a glitch. It is the design. No human being has ever lived with full foresight. Outcomes have always depended on variables beyond individual command. Weather shifts. People change their minds. Opportunities appear and disappear. Control has always been partial. Certainty has always been limited. Anxiety intensifies when you interpret uncertainty as danger rather than condition. When you say, "I cannot relax until I know," you place peace behind an impossible requirement. You demand a level of clarity that reality does not offer. Stoicism does not attempt to eliminate uncertainty. It normalizes it. The Stoic understands that unpredictability is the stage upon which character is exercised. If everything were guaranteed, discipline would be unnecessary. Courage would be irrelevant. Accepting uncertainty does not mean liking it. It means recognizing it as neutral. It exists whether you resist it or not. Resistance adds tension. Acceptance reduces friction. When you stop treating unpredictability as a threat, your nervous system recalibrates. The future remains open, but no longer feels hostile. You shift from attempting to control the unknown to preparing yourself to respond to it. This acceptance does not weaken you, it stabilizes you, because you are no longer fighting the structure of existence. And once uncertainty is accepted, another illusion must fall. Releasing psychological ownership of outcomes. There is a subtle attachment that fuels anxiety. The belief that outcomes are extensions of you. If the project fails, you failed. If the conversation goes poorly, you are diminished. If the opportunity disappears, your value decreases. You do not just prefer a result, you internalize it. This is psychological ownership. When identity fuses with outcome, every external fluctuation becomes a personal verdict. A delayed response feels like rejection. A setback feels like exposure. An unexpected change feels like humiliation. The nervous system reacts as if survival is at stake. Stoicism separates event from identity. Outcomes are events. They occur, they conclude, they shift, but they do not define your character unless you allow them to. Your character is expressed in how you act, not in how reality responds. Releasing ownership does not mean indifference to effort. It means understanding that once action is taken, the result belongs to a broader field of causes. Your responsibility ends at conduct. The conclusion is not a mirror of your worth. When you detach identity from outcome, anxiety loses intensity. The result can disappoint without destroying you. It can surprise without destabilizing you. It can shift without collapsing your internal structure. You begin to see that you were never meant to possess outcomes. You participate in them, you influence them, but you do not own them. And once ownership is released, something becomes possible. You can return attention to the only place anxiety cannot fully exist: the discipline of present containment. Anxiety lives in projection. It lives in what might happen, what could go wrong, what may unfold beyond your design. Rarely does it dominate when attention is fully anchored in what is happening now. The present is narrower. It contains fewer variables. It is actionable. Present containment is the discipline of returning to what is directly in front of you, not the imagined conversation, not the hypothetical failure, not the distant possibility, only the current action available. When you bring attention back to immediate conduct, anxiety loses terrain, because in the present moment, you can always choose something: a breath, a decision, a response. Even small acts of control over posture and tone restore internal authority. The Stoic does not attempt to eliminate thought of the future. He refuses to live there. Planning happens briefly. Action happens now. Rumination happens when attention escapes jurisdiction. Containment requires training. The mind will drift toward uncertainty again. Each time, you bring it back without frustration, back to what can be done in this hour, in this conversation, in this task. This discipline shrinks the domain of anxiety. It cannot fully exist in a space where action is clear. It requires ambiguity to grow. When you focus on execution in the present, you stop negotiating with distant outcomes. You stabilize your nervous system by grounding it in controllable movement. And as presence strengthens, another quiet practice becomes necessary. Because stability is not only about action, it is about emotional neutrality before results arrive. The practice of outcome neutrality. Most anxiety intensifies before the result appears. You imagine success and fear losing it. You imagine failure and brace for impact. Your emotional state swings in anticipation. The mind attaches early, rehearses victory or defeat, and suffers in advance. Outcome neutrality interrupts this pattern. It is the practice of preparing yourself to receive either result without collapse, not by pretending you do not care, but by reminding yourself that the result, whatever it is, will not define your character. You choose stability before you know the answer. The anxious mind seeks relief through certainty. It says, "Once I know, I will calm down." But even when the result arrives, another uncertainty emerges, another future, another variable. Relief becomes temporary because attachment remains. Stoicism teaches pre-acceptance. You acknowledge that success may come, failure may come, delay may come. You allow each possibility to exist mentally without resistance. In doing so, you remove the shock factor. When the outcome arrives, it meets a prepared posture rather than a fragile one. Emotional intensity decreases because you have not constructed your identity around the result. Neutrality does not eliminate preference. You can still hope for success, but hope does not become dependency. You do not anchor your peace to a specific conclusion. This quiet readiness stabilizes your nervous system. It prevents extreme emotional spikes. It reduces the fear of the unknown. And once you learn to remain steady before results, another strength emerges: flexibility. Because rigidity under uncertainty creates fragility, the strength of adaptive posture. Rigid minds break under pressure. Flexible minds absorb it. Anxiety often grows from rigidity, the belief that things must unfold in a specific way, that the plan must remain intact. That deviation equals danger. But reality rarely moves in straight lines. Plans adjust, conversations shift, opportunities change direction. When your internal structure is inflexible, every deviation feels like collapse. Adaptive posture is not surrender. It is intelligent responsiveness. You maintain your principles, but you allow your strategy to evolve. You accept that circumstances may alter the route, even if the destination remains meaningful. Stoicism values inner firmness and outer flexibility. Your character remains stable. Your expectations remain fluid. When you are rigid about outcomes, you create tension. When you are rigid about virtue and flexible about circumstance, you create resilience. Adaptability reduces anxiety because it removes the demand for perfect alignment between intention and reality. If something changes, you adjust. You do not interpret change as catastrophe. You interpret it as movement. The anxious mind fears uncertainty because it equates unpredictability with loss of control. The adaptive mind understands that control lies in response, not in circumstance. Flexibility does not weaken authority. It strengthens it. Because you are no longer threatened by variation, you are prepared to pivot without panic. And when flexibility becomes natural, something quiet begins to happen. Anxiety does not need to be fought. The quiet disappearance of anxiety. Anxiety rarely leaves through confrontation. It fades when its foundation weakens. When you stop rehearsing the future. When you stop forecasting catastrophe as protection. When you stop micromanaging perception. When you stop attaching identity to outcomes. When you withdraw energy from what was never under your authority. It does not vanish in a dramatic moment. It diminishes in silence. You still plan. You still act. You still care. But the grip loosens. The constant tightening around what might happen softens because you are no longer demanding certainty from a structure that was never designed to provide it. The Stoic shift is simple but profound. You do not control events. You control judgment. You control intention. You control conduct. When judgment aligns with reality instead of resisting it, tension decreases. Anxiety depends on the illusion that everything must be supervised. When you release that illusion, the nervous system recalibrates. It no longer operates in permanent alert. You are not passive. You are precise. You act fully where authority exists. You detach where it does not. You prepare your character instead of attempting to secure the future. Over time, something stabilizes. The mind stops chasing certainty. The body stops bracing for imagined disaster. The present becomes sufficient. Control is not eliminated. It is relocated. And when control is placed only where it truly belongs, anxiety loses its territory. When control becomes unnecessary. At the beginning, there was a grip. A tightening around the future, around outcomes, around how others might respond. The belief that constant supervision equaled safety, that if you relaxed your vigilance, life would turn against you. Now, the structure is different. You have seen how mental rehearsal exhausts stability, how predictive rumination disguises itself as preparation, how microcontrol drains energy, how fear hides beneath the need to dominate outcomes, how effort does not equal authority, how jurisdiction defines responsibility, how attention fuels tension, how identity does not belong to results, how the present moment contains actionable clarity, how neutrality before outcomes prevents emotional spikes, how flexibility builds resilience. Nothing external may have changed. The future remains uncertain. Outcomes remain variable. Other people remain autonomous. But something internal has shifted. You no longer attempt to command what is not yours. You act where you have authority. You release where you do not. You prepare your character instead of rehearsing catastrophe. Stoicism does not promise elimination of discomfort. It promises alignment with reality. And alignment reduces unnecessary suffering. The moment you stop trying to control life, life stops triggering your nervous system at every turn. You still move forward. You still plan. You still care. But the grip is gone. And in its place, there is steadiness.